We begin tonight with our continuing coverage of the utter devastation caused by Hurricane Harvey. Some areas in Texas received over 50 inches of rain, creating what one scientist is calling a once-in-every-1,000 years flooding event. Vice President Mike Pence visited with storm survivors in Texas today, and President Trump is donating $1 million of his own money to storm victims. For the latest on Harvey and its aftermath, let's go to Steve Harrigan in Silsbee, Texas. Steve.
Jesse, no rain here right now, but east of Houston, the floodwaters keep rising, and that's really caught a lot of people here by surprise. Throughout the day, we saw a number of water rescues. Some people going out in flatboats to pick up neighbors, others to pick up their pets, and in the case we're about to show you, both.
We didn't really have much flooding until just this morning. It started coming past the fence line and started rushing to our yard. So we got 3 acres out there, and I want to say probably 4/5 of it's underwater.
Why'd you decide to come?
Well, we shut off the power. We didn't have no water or food, so we couldn't cook.
The rescuer in that case actually came from Arkansas. He told us that he had the resources and the time and wanted to help. He's been saving people for 2 days. Jesse, back to you.
Steve, thank you. The press is covering President Trump's every move related to Hurricane Harvey, and no matter what the president does, it seems the mainstream media says it's not enough.
I don't think that he understands the human scale of misery. I don't think that he can connect with the sort of compassion that you normally have when you see a disaster like this.
And it was very striking that he didn't mention the number of people who have died, or even, sort of try to empathize with the fact that people are genuinely suffering.
The fact that he saw no damage firsthand did not stop him from claiming on Twitter he witnessed, quote, firsthand the horror and devastation caused by Hurricane Harvey.
And today at the White House press briefing, the press corps seemed more concerned about illegal immigrants than anybody else affected by Harvey.
There are 575,000 undocumented immigrants in Houston, one of the largest populations in this country. Does this White House believe they should be eligible for long-term federal recovery assistance?
I'm just a little bit confused about your answer to Cecilia. I just want to go back to that on the idea of undocumented immigrants getting long-term funding. Was that a yes or a no? Does the administration support that?
You are an undocumented immigrant, and you did have a home, and that home was destroyed in a flood. You are in a shelter. What happened?
What happens, Greg? All those undocumented immigrants, they're probably more deserving, according to the press corps, of relief than actual residents of Texas.
I would get being concerned, and being concerned about everyone, from the undocumented to the documented. But it seems to, when you listen to the press, it's as if only undocumented or illegal immigrants are involved in this disaster, which makes me think they really don't care that this is a political point that they're trying to make. I would never say the media is trying to do this. By the way, it was, both sides do this. The side out of power always goes after the side in power. During Hurricane Sandy, there was a lot of criticism about Obama hugging Chris Christie. Do you remember that? Yeah. But the interesting thing, I think this is a different time. I don't think President Trump is as big a factor in this because it seems like Texas represents such a positive, unifying force that people can't really turn this into a bad thing. It's like Texas's new motto should be, "We got this." Yeah. Because it's like Trump is not, the unity speaks for itself. So when you start talking about Donald Trump not being warm and fuzzy like a bunny slipper, people are like, we don't need it. We got this. We're fine. We don't need a cozy, fuzzy banana, or a bunny slipper. Oh my God. Bunny slipper as a leader. Right. As a leader, we can do it ourselves, and you see it every day. So I think it's really hard for the media to go after him at this point because the visuals convey the message. They convey the message that he wants to convey, which is making America great again, which is the positive nature of people coming together. He's just kind of in the background. So they can't really, this stuff is baby games.
That's right, and the media thinks Texas wants tears.
Yeah.
And they want volunteers, they want food, they want shelter. That's not what Texas needs right now, Kimberly, but for some reason, the press wants the photo op of the president crying and hugging. like a Bill Clinton or an Obama.
Well, and if he did that, they would say that, oh, this is just totally put upon, filled with
right.
artifice. This is someone trying to save his political presidency. They would not have any time wasted hitting him and attacking him and saying that it was crocodile tears. What I think here is to be celebrated is the fact that people have come together in an incredible, unparalleled humanitarian effort to be able to help one another, to be able to provide the funding, provide the food, the resources, the rescue efforts, to bring people together. This, to me, is a really shining example of the best of American cooperative efforts trying to help one another, of our unity about what unites us rather than what divides us. So I think this has been, in a way, a time of healing through tremendous tragedy, where people have said, you know what, we really actually have so much more in common than what the media or, the mainstream media or the press will tell us that divides us. And that, I think, is really important.
It is important, but the press seems focused on the empathy factor, Juan, and they're saying, I don't know how they get this information, that they believe that the president doesn't care and he lacks empathy towards the actual victims. Back up to the election, I think Hillary Clinton was the robot that couldn't connect and couldn't show empathy. President Trump won in November because he could empathize with that forgotten man, the victims of unfair trade deals, the victims of open borders and bad deals. That's what got him elected.
I'm not sure, but okay. I mean, I think that's an element. I mean, people say lots of things about what got him elected. I don't know for sure, but I tell you, when it comes to this issue, I think that, Kimberly, to me, was right on target. No matter what he did, if he had gone down to Texas, if he'd actually gone to the front lines, people would say, well, you know what, he's going through the motions to try to create an image that will appeal to Americans. Well, he didn't do it. So when the president says, but you didn't do it, and guess what? We have a Fox News poll out today that says only 26% of Americans think of him as a compassionate person. I think it plays in to a negative image about his weaknesses. And so the press then says, well, look, I mean, this guy doesn't seem very compassionate. And you guys say, oh, that's the mainstream press. Or on the immigrants issue, who has made immigration the centerpiece of his campaign? Maybe that's the reason he got elected, because he was hard on illegal immigrants, immigrants in general. And now when people say, well, what about, are they stopping immigrants at the checkpoints? Are they going to do some kind of sweep at the shelters to find illegal immigrants? Are illegal immigrants eligible for benefits? All these questions bubble up because he has demonstrated such an antipathy towards immigrants.
Nobody looks for a surgeon based on empathy. They look for skill sets. It's like, that is the worst thing. Maybe a psychologist or a priest,
right,
if you want empathy. That's fine. Yeah. But the thing is, you're asking Trump for empathy. You don't get it. That's not why he was elected. You don't even have to like Trump to think he's a good president.
Right, but I agree with you. But I'm telling you, he's a politician. And we have seen, I think it was a highlight of President Bush's time, when he stood there and says, I hear you, in the wreckage after 9/11.
Yeah.
Okay, but I think they're trying to fit Trump into the political mold, and they're upset, the media is, because Trump's not playing by the media playbook. He's not going down there and hugging and crying like every other politician does. So then the media will write a story that says, because he's not acting, quote, acting like a politician,
he's not a presidential Jell-O mold. That's why.
I kind of feel like this is a question of leadership style, if we break it down to what we're really talking about here, right? I think it's fair to compare and contrast different presidents in the wake of national disasters. I think it's fair to evaluate all of them. It's fair to say, okay, President Trump has not taken on this sort of consoler-in-chief attitude. He has not maybe been so overly emotive. He's not been hugging people. But I think that to extrapolate from that, the idea that he is somehow not empathetic is not fair. And I think that's lazy analysis. I also think it's weird sort of like pop psychology that people are imposing onto the president.
It's mind reading.
I think that if we're going to talk about his leadership style in the wake of this storm, I think it has really been him adopting his chief executive officer mode. He's put that hat on. He's established a clear chain of command. VP Pence was out on the ground today, clearly acting as the COO, if America is this corporation. I think this is how he approaches it. It's like, we've got this strategic problem. How am I going to fix things? Who's going to handle what? Who am I delegating to? That's the style we've seen from President Trump. So it's fair to talk about what we think about that. But I think to condemn him for choosing one style over another is not fair.
And Shoegate continues, everybody. The Washington Post, I believe, Kimberly, doubled down on attacking Melania's high heels, saying totally fair game to go after the First Lady's choice of footwear. What do you think about that?
I don't know, but she had tennis shoes on or sneakers, whatever, kicks, whatever you guys want to call them these days. And they didn't have a problem with that. I think this is childish, and I think it's immature. Why don't they cover the real stories that are out there about the human suffering and the people's will to live and to help and to give back and to try to, you know, unite people? They don't want to do that because that's not a fun story. They'd rather poke fun at somebody who's actually been a fantastic First Lady and represented us well in an elegant way.
Why is it always only the women that talk
about
that? That annoys me. I think it is sexist.
This is what Washington Post did, which is so hilarious. They wanted to do this story, but they wanted to protect themselves from the criticism of being sexist. So the headline is, it's not sexist to go after Melania because the shoes implied that she wasn't thinking about others. I believe that the Washington Post was sexist in choosing a woman to do this story, Kayla Epstein, because that provided them with the camouflage to trash the First Lady. It's about trashing the First Lady. If you look at the Twitter feeds of Kayla Epstein, not a Trump fan by any means, but they used her sex to cover this. So she's just a pawn in the Washington Post a way to avoid looking sexist. But I think that Kayla Epstein, she's on her way to getting a Pulitzer if they have a category for shoes.
Well, let me just say,
what's going on at the Washington Post?
First of all, let me just say, I think it was Robin Givhan, who is the Post fashion writer, who first wrote about this. And so maybe you could say, oh, well, it's the fashion people. What are they doing?
It's women.
Politics.
Washington Post, they assume that men can't write about shoes.
Well, no,
they assume that only women can do it.
Well,
let the chicks write about the shoes. That's sexist.
Is that sexist?
That's sexist.
Greg has a lot of talk about women's shoes.
Greg, I'm going to let you write a poem about my shoes.
Dozens of women's magazines. I've written for dozens.
But let me just say, I saw in the New York Times today that their top story, the story that was most read in the New York Times yesterday, was guess what?
The shoes.
The shoes.
Yeah.
So I think there's widespread interest in this. Now, why?
Pandering.
Why? Oh, pandering? I don't know.
They're in the gutter where the shoe is.
I think there are a lot of people who see this as evidence that this is the high class, the super rich, the billionaire's life, out of touch.
It's class warfare.
Right. And, well, okay.
It's class warfare.
But nonetheless, what it suggests is she's out of touch, and that, you know, Kimberly,
you just don't like her.
Kimberly, I hate to tell you this, but Kimberly said they didn't get to the sneakers. They did get to the sneakers. They said the sneakers were
glistening.
Were glistening.
Yes, they were glistening. No, glistening.
Never been worn before.
They didn't say she was the worst person for wearing the sneakers. I mean, it's just
how many articles talked about what the president was wearing?
Trivial.
Yeah.
I mean,
where was the commentary about what President
They did talk about because he was
today.
wearing a hat and a jacket that you can buy.
All right, fine, but no criticism that he picked the wrong
attire. He also gave $1 million. Okay.
But don't you see my point that Washington Post goes out of its way to find women to attack the women so they don't look sexist? But it's actually sexist to choose the women to be the attackers.
Happens all the time.
It's kind of sad and weird.
And Greg would gladly write about women's shoes if you just give him the chance.
I can write a mean piece on shoes.